Oh, now before this video starts, excuse the background sounds, I just want to say thank you for over 300 subscribers by now. I think we're at 303. Yeah, look at that. 303. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I didn't expect to actually get that far. But like, well, 100 subscribers would be nice, but 300? Well, that's already 3 times what I would have bargained for. So yeah, thank you very much. Let's just hope there's going to be more to come. Alright, and now onwards with the video. Alright, well, hello everyone. This is going to be a kind of a different video because I thought I'd try a sort of different format. So yeah, now you can actually see me in the camera, and I sure hope it's actually focused. I mean, we'll see. And yeah, you can already see the subject at hand. Today we're talking about helmets. I once did a video before on German helmets, but I personally think it's a bit too much information crammed into one video. So I decided to start again. Also because I have some more helmets to use as examples. So why wear a helmet? Well, to protect from shrapnel mostly, not really from bullets, because as you can see, rifle bullets, they do mess up helmets pretty badly. So, don't want to cut the shirt, but yeah, this one's been shot up at a range, as you can see, but it's a pretty good example of what happens when a helmet gets hit. So yeah, it's to protect from artillery shrapnel and that sort of thing. So in World War I, most soldiers wore the Pickelhaube, which is just made of leather with, I don't know, few pieces of brass on it, you know, the eagle and stuff, but it really doesn't stop anything. So there were a lot of head wounds in the First World War, and so, I mean, the first sort of helmet would be the Decal Helmet, but it was actually just used by one unit and on in very small numbers, and was very quickly replaced with something that is very similar to this. Now this you would call the M18 or Stahlhelm 18, because it doesn't have the chin strap lugs right here, but otherwise it's exactly the same as an M16. So in 1916 the first steel helmet was adopted by the Germans, and it's pretty much this shape, just that it has a chin strap lug here, and well, it has a different liner now because it's been reissued as a World War II model, but yeah, just to give you the shape, you know, see it's quite long, and yeah, all the features are pretty, you know, exaggerated in a way. See these big horns. So this was the helmet that was used by the Imperial Army, and yeah, well, first of all, the M18 just differs from the M16 shell because it doesn't have the chin strap lugs here. That's because it had a different liner. But that's something for another video. So this was the helmet that was used in the First World War and the interwar period up until 1935, when, you know, this helmet, let's just, you know, put it on. You can see it does block your ears pretty much completely, which is, yeah, anyway, I don't know, I just got interrupted. Anyway, as you can see, this helmet does go down very far, and this is all pretty big. And so in 1935 the design was updated to the Stahlhelm 35, which is this, and this is both in the same size, but you can see it's a lot smaller, and for a good reason, because this is pretty cumbersome. So there's also a difference, not just in the shape, also this is different, as you can see, because this was for attaching a shield or an armor plate called the Sturmpanzer, which was very heavy and not used that much. It was supposed to be used by snipers and MG troops, but it was just way too heavy and it made you walk like this, so obviously it fell out of favor pretty quickly. So they went away with that and just had this simplified vent hole. It's still a stamped component, or a separate component. Let me show you. See right there? It's a separately inserted piece. And yeah, the paint was sort of this light green color, sometimes also a bit darker, which is called Olivgrün or Apfelgrün. And you can see that it has a decal here, a national shield, and it has another decal right here, which is the shield for the branch of service. In this example it's the army, because it's a Heer decal. There's also one for the Luftwaffe and the Kriegsmarine, and then there's also different helmets like Polizei and SS, but this is just a general overview. So yeah, just compare the shell proportions here and you'll get the idea. Yeah, right. Let me move that out of the way. Now this is the pre-war helmet, also called the M35 as I already said. And when the war started, there were issues with camouflage with this, because you can see this paint, it's smooth and this makes it pretty shiny, especially when the sun shines, and it's easy to spot. And also this decal right here is very obvious in the field because of the bright red and the bright white. So they decided to change it up to the Stahlhelm 40 or M40, which is this. You can see the color has now changed into a dark green in this case, so-called Feldgrau, and it has a rough texture on it. And the decal has been removed on this side, or was not applied anymore, but it's still on this side of the branch of service decal, that is. That was the case up until mid-1943, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Also, there was a simplification because, you know, these helmets, they were finely made and they took a lot of time to make. So they decided to replace this stamped vent hole with a, well, this pressed in vent with a stamped vent hole, as you can see. Let me bring that a little closer. There we go. You can see it's not a separate piece anymore, it's yeah, just in the shell. This helmet is made by the Sächsische Neue Werke, and therefore it looks pretty similar to an M35 air vent. But if we, for example, take this shell, you can see it's pretty different. It's a lot shallower, and you can also see on the inside that it is stamped in the shell. Now, let's continue. Put this up here and move this down. Also, as the war broke out, there were more soldiers than they had helmets, so they needed more helmets. So that's where this comes in again. This was, well, this is a restored helmet, but it serves the purpose as a reissued. So it was taken back to a depot, for example, and repainted. Yeah, reissue helmet, and these were also used in the campaign in France. There's quite a lot of pictures actually where you can see World War I helmets being used. Then they actually had the decal still applied here. This one is well, supposed to mimic a later one. So this is a no decal helmet, but we'll get onto that now. As the war progressed, they needed more helmets more quickly. So they decided to simplify the manufacture yet again by introducing the Stahlhelm 42. That's this one, which, as you can see, is quite a bit different. Well, mostly. So this is still the same. The air vent is still a stamped in piece, but the edge is not rolled over anymore. See here, a nice rolled edge. Makes it look very premium. But here they just left it as it came out of the stamp, so, or out of the press rather. So it takes a lot of time out of the manufacture process and makes it a lot quicker. So yeah. Also in mid-1943 they stopped applying the decals on this side, and that resulted in the no decal helmet. I have an M40 here which is a no decal helmet, because there were some factories that did not switch to M42 production in 1942. As you can see here, this one was made in 1944 by Quist, and yeah, it's a no decal helmet. The only decals that were still applied, as you can see on this one, are the Polizei decals. So this is the shield where there would have been an eagle, but there is not one anymore. And here would have been the party decal, so the red shield with a white circle and a big swastika in it. Yeah, it's been removed because it has been used during the British occupation by the newly formed fire brigades or fire departments, which is also pretty interesting. Yeah, so just to recap again, the models. M16 to M18, that's for the shape anyway. Yeah, goes into the M35. You know, stamped air vent and, pressed in air vent and rolled edge. Transitions into the M40, stamped air vent, not a separate piece anymore, rolled edge, which transitions into the M42, which has a stamped air vent and a raw edge, or not rolled over edge. So that is the history of the German helmet up until 1945, but as time goes on, things still get used. So I will move this out of the way now, because after the war there were lots of these lying around, not being used by anyone. So they were, for example, used by fire departments or other armies. For example, the Norwegians used a lot of German helmets in the early post-war years because they had large stocks of them remaining. And the design also carried on because, well, the German army was dissolved pretty much with the unconditional surrender of the Wehrmacht in 1945. But there was still a need to keep the borders safe between the Eastern occupation zone, so the Soviet zone, and the other zones which have by then formed into the Federal Republic of Germany. So they obviously needed helmets, and first they used or reused these what were two helmets pretty much as they were, just removed any decals and repainted them. Then they ran out of those and they had to have new ones made, which leads into this. This is the so-called M40 or 53, and I think you can agree that it shares a lot of similarities with, oops, let's move this out of the way, the M40. As you can see here, they are pretty much the same, only that this helmet has no vent holes and no split pin holes, because this has the Innenfutter or Innenausstattung 31, as you can see here, which is held in by 3 pins, here and here. And it has a metal band. There we go. You can see the pins here. But this one was simplified into this sort of liner. As you can see, the leather is pretty much identical, just that it has some holes here for ventilation, and also the liner band does not exist anymore, in that way anyway. Instead, it is mounted by a screw right here in a foam pad, in the middle of a foam pad for better comfort, and it then sort of looks like a spider in a way, going down to a ring which is here, which holds the leather. The chin strap is pretty much the same, as you can hopefully see here. Now it's got 13 holes and a buckle, and it's secured by these pins, which you can also see here, but we'll probably talk about chin straps in a different video, but largely the same. Now there's one other post-war helmet which is pretty interesting to look at, which also shares the legacy of the Stahlhelm, and that is this one. This is the M56 helmet from the Nationale Volksarmee, or the NVA, National People's Army, and this shape was actually a proposed prototype to replace the Stahlhelm 42, because it has way better ballistics, but Hitler didn't want it because it didn't resemble the stereotypical German Stahlhelm. So that's why it was never used in World War II. But when when East Germany wanted to form an army, they wanted to differentiate themselves from the other Eastern Bloc armies, because they all used sorry for the tools in there, but they used the or the SSH 40, this design, which is just the stereotypical Soviet helmet, and pretty much all Eastern Bloc or communist satellite states used this sort of helmet, sometimes in different versions, but the shape was always the same. And they wanted to be something different, so they decided to take this prototype and actually use that, as you can see here, the so-called Thale B2 or Thale B/2 prototype. Yeah, the shape is pretty much exactly that, just that it's been produced post-war, and it has a slightly different liner, which you can see here. But again, you can see the World War II style leather. It's very similar. Well, it's pretty much identical, only that's sewn together differently here. And the chin strap is a bit different, and also the liner ring is a bit different, and you have these foam pads here. But it's a further development of the so-called M44 liner, which also got rid of the outer liner band and just had an inner ring, which was fixed to, with also these 3 pins. Here these are pretty small, but the idea is the same. So yeah, so pretty much this helmet was obviously used up until the reunification of Germany in 1989-1990 with the fall of the Berlin Wall on the 9th of November 1989. So yeah, I mean, that really concludes the history of the German helmet. Nowadays the Kevlar helmets are in a fairly similar shape to the World War II helmets, because it's a pretty effective design, just with some alterations to it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, told you something about the history of the German helmet and the different models and shapes. So there is the M16 to M18 for the World War I period. Then for World War II we have the M35, the M40 and the M42. And then for the post-war period we have the M40/53 or /55, something like that, for the Bundesgrenzschutz. The Bundeswehr used a different helmet. They used pretty much an M1 with this liner, and then the M56 for the Nationale Volksarmee. So, without further ado, that's it for this video, and I hope you like this sort of format too, with me sitting here. I think it's a little more personal, and yeah, if you enjoyed it, leave a like, and please tell me that it's actually a decent format. If not, I'll just go back to the previous one. But yeah, that's it for this video.